Bring the meeting to order. You okay? Okay. Yep. Thank you all, and happy June 2nd morning. So what I'd like to do is start with, did everybody get the minutes and everything?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. A review and acceptance of the minutes from the previous meeting. If anyone has any additions, completions, corrections or insertions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will ask for a, what's the word?
Motion to approve.
Motion to accept the minutes. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit not myself this morning, but thank you, everyone. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I would like to put forth a motion to approve.
Thank you. And could I have a second, please? Thank you, Lonnie. Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everybody. So what we're going to do is start off with some old business this morning. A lot's going to come up through our protocol process and where we are with the protocols now. And I'm going to turn it over to Michael. Thank God.
So the BLS, both the BLS and the ALS protocols have been approved by New York State Bureau of EMS and the Department of Health. The implementation for both is August 1st of 2019. The regional office is beginning to work on sending out letters to providers, agencies, EMS coordinators, and the delegates to the region in an attempt to begin to push the information down through all of those channels to the providers. Ultimately, every provider in the region, which is about 8,000, need to be aware that there are new New York State BLS protocols that they need to become familiar with and get trained on. And so we're going to begin to push that information out, and we'll continue then to push that out as the summer proceeds along here. Ultimately, getting that information down, again, is critical. We feel that we've met some roadblocks at some of those higher level choke points. And one of the things that the regional office is working on doing is using a new email tool, which will allow providers to subscribe and get this information pushed down from the regional office. Additionally, the regional office has updated the website and Facebook at this point with links to the protocols so that the providers can get those. I believe Jeff is also working on trying to get a Twitter account set up as well. Dr. Arshad and Dr. Fulagar developed extensive training programs at the Laerdal Corporation. They've been working on editing those, and we'll turn it over to Dr. Arshad to give us an update, on where we stand with that. But that's going to be a significant piece of the BLS training components. And if you got a moment to speak about that now, so we know where we're at with that.
If you have time.
You ready?
Yes.
I didn't pull it on too quick.
No, we've got this. We selected a great group of providers throughout the region to really highlight some of the protocols and bring to light the primary premise that be the best BLS that you can be.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, absolutely. And to
Be the best.
be able to stage, prepare, and manage complex patients, and not always to assume that ALS is on the list, which can definitely be a foible, especially in this region and throughout New York at large. We have recorded several different scenarios highlighting components from high-performance CPR to tourniquet deployment to pelvic binder application to social aspects in regards to out-of-hospital care. And we're also working on a series of audio podcasts to supplement really putting on some national experts on, again, pelvic fractures, tourniquet deployments, starting high-quality simulation programs, continued medical education, and how we can really improve on a day-to-day basis with very resources or capital expenditures. We are working now to, similar to the ALS collaborative protocol video, insert bubbles or captions throughout the simulation video so we can highlight salient points, reference different medical papers, journal articles, and bring home some of those key takeaways. One of the challenges, and I'm not sure if this was still challenging for me to comprehend, is the BLS protocol update is for the entire state in comparison to the ALS collaborative protocol update from the past, in which regions elected to participate in the collaborative protocols. These new BLS protocols are essentially going to be for every EMT within the state. So,
and it's the first time in 17 years it's all been changed. And so the other thing that we're going to run up against is people aren't expecting that, number one. And two, no, they've been like the forgotten stepchild. No one's really ever gotten out there and said, this is what we had to do. We did a little bit with when we rolled out ALS, the last time. However, this is going to be a new, augmentation and support system for them.
So there's some additional hurdles that the state has put forth that we have accepted responsibility to help facilitate in order to make sure that all the check boxes are being marked off and that this is palatable for the BLS providers across the state.
Yeah, it's going to be daunting in certain areas. Let's just put it that way. I got out there the last time to do some of the front line discussion. So a lot of them don't really realize. So it's a thing we just have to keep communicating and making sure we get information out there. One of the things that may occur is more of the BLS agencies may be reaching out to have some kind of guidance from us and guidance from local docs in the area and their EDs, so we hopefully can fulfill that gap that's been really quite void in the past.
And the training and ed is going to work on it some as well, trying to develop some additional online stuff and make sure that there's some CME credit that's awarded as well.
And they changed the way you can get CME. They increased the amount of online education you can use now. So they allowed and facilitated for easier education for everybody. So the state has opened up the amount of material you can garnish online. So that also will help.
Yeah, now that stuff's not going to be improved, unfortunately, until September.
Yeah, but it's still a step. It's still a step.
We're
We're trying to join the rest of the world.
Yeah, and then the other thing too that we're going to try to be doing is we're going to push out a flyer so that people can post. Again, I think our one of the biggest discussions that we had is being able to penetrate down to the provider level. Again, we have about 8,000 EMTs or EMTs in advanced in the region, and every single one of those needs to know that there's a new protocol out there. And so we're going to try to get flyers out through the EMS coordination, posting the hospital EDs, so that anybody who comes in. I'm sorry.
You started talking about 500.
You did good, and then you just went.
Every single one of those.
Every single one of those needs to be aware that there is a new protocol out there, and then needs to become familiar with the content of that. So that's it on the BLS protocols.
You said there's 8,000 BLS providers in Hudson Valley?
Bill, that's the number, right?
Yeah.
Close to 8,000
BLS and ALS.
BLS and ALS.
There's about 800 ALS and about 7,120 that live within the Hudson Valley.
And that doesn't include Westchester?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, you guys probably add.
Yeah.
But you probably add. Yep.
Another question along this line. So what is BLS, what does it take to be an EMT now? I mean, what do you have to do? How many hours?
Rich, I'm going to defer to you.
130, and it can go longer.
Right.
All right.
Depending upon how you deliver it, right? It depends upon your curriculum and how you do it.
It's going 130, 150 hours, and even at that, you're not coming out complete. The agencies have to take on the role of how do we apply this to the street type of stuff.
Give them online and kind of buddy training and mentorship.
They need, mentorship is a big problem.
And that's still a national federal oversight course.
Oh, yeah, we adopted,
Yeah.
what, 95? They adopted the national curriculum.
Yes.
And that's what we follow. New York State used to develop their own instructor guide. Now they don't. We follow the national curriculum.
I think it was 95.
Yeah.
So the interesting piece, and as Dr. Arshad has really alluded to, these protocols are completely different. This is a complete rewrite from the beginning of the document to the end, and there's a lot of material that needs to be shared with the providers.
But it's all good stuff. It just
Absolutely.
sorry, you're sorry, but it's something that should have been done a long time ago.
Sure.
You know, so it puts out a tremendous amount of good information. It gives them a lot of resources. There's a lot of great tags to information and way to explain things, but it's really well written. And kudos to the collaborative committee, to everybody who was on the protocol committee, and Dr. Fulligar and Dr. Ashad. Thank you.
So moving right along to the ALS Collaborative at the same time, we are working on a comparison document between the existing collaborative and the new. The changes are certainly not as sweeping, and so we're trying to pull together a document that'll help the providers just see what that bridge is, so we can bridge that gap. And that document is not out yet. So that's the BLS and the ALS.
Great, thank you.
And that implementation is also August 1st.
So we're going to table regional stroke for now, right?
So there was a discussion and a request that the protocol committee look at a stroke policy similar to the one that the REMO had adopted. And after discussing it, in theirs they talk about a primary center as well as a comprehensive stroke center. Since then, New York State has come out with a document that talks about stroke designations for primary, thrombectomy, and comprehensive. But at a statewide program agency conference call, there was lots of concerns that it was not, that individual regions were going to address it rather than at a state level. And the state says that in the very near future, they're going to address this. So while we had developed a draft and it was emailed out to you, the protocol committee has decided that it's inappropriate at this point to move it forward until more information is available from the state.
Yeah, we'll just see what they say. It's going to, come under the arm. They're going to, give the designation of whoever makes it under the wire, and then beyond that, it'll be under whatever agency, not agency, but whatever governmental certification development. Either you use Joint Commission or you use is it DVN? I can't even remember. DNV.
They have four agencies.
Yeah, so it'll fall under that, and after that, they'll take over the recertification. So everybody's trying to scramble to get under the wire and get their certification from the state, and then it'll go forward from there. But we'll wait for their final policy and how they want to roll it all out, and then we'll go and we'll adopt it for us.
Just my understanding from that conference call, webinar, you were talking to.
I was not, Bill.
Okay. So was March of 2022, right? That was when all, or it was either 21 or 22, I can't
That they
remember.
were all required.
That you, as a hospital, were required to undergo one of those three designations.
Right. But I think they're going to be working on it a lot sooner than that.
Oh, yeah, people are jumping on the bandwagon, but it seemed like the deadline for New York State, you were just, the new system was coming into place in March of, I thought they said 3 years, so I think it was 22.
Okay.
I think that's the drop dead date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think 2022 is March 2022 is the
Right.
drop dead going
For
forward.
the hospitals.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, we will probably then start working on some type of, destination protocols. But and they did, as you said, leave it up to the regions.
Okay, service upgrades, there's none. Evaluation subcommittee report, Dr. Shad?
No news.
Okay. Enforcement notifications, I have one. This is for Jose Rivera out of the Bronx. He is, his certification has been revoked as of April 2nd for violations of Part 800. So it's Jose Rivera out of the Bronx. Helicopter committee report, Dr. Larson.
Not up.
Okay. RTAC, Bill?
There has not been a meeting.
Hasn't been a meeting.
There has
Okay.
not been a meeting.
This is going to be a record meeting. Quality improvement, Mr. Kutcher.
Okay, work is still progressing on the upgrade to Memphis 3.4. We do have a final New York State supplemental dictionary. The new schematron has been posted to the vendors.
I'm sorry, move on.
Schematron. We found an issue with one of the rules that New York City EMS wanted implemented regarding stroke scale. And essentially what it did is our data on our regional bridge, we would show a document having 100% validation. When we compared that document to when it was posted on the state bridge, it had a score of negative 180. We brought that problem to the New York State Department of Health folks. They said, we're going to have to send this problem to Image Trend. Somewhere in Image Trend's code, they either dropped a parenthesis or a bracket or something, but it was implementing that rule where the rule should never have been implemented. For example, on a call cancel, it was dropping it by 50 points, but there is no other data that is required for a call canceled other than call canceled. The other thing that we have been working on with Image Trend is obtaining a hospital hub connection, which would provide us with the ability to post all of the EPCR data to the patient's record as soon as it is submitted by the provider, which would eliminate the need of using the old technology of faxing or leaving a copy so it could get lost someplace. But it would be much better for QA/QI purposes on both the hospital, agency, and the regions of the park. And we're waiting to hear back on what the cost of that is going to be. That's about it.
Thank you.
What's a schematron?
Schematron is actually the HTML code that the data gets broken down into. I can show it to you, but
Sounds like a cool name.
I don't know if you do.
pretty much, and you shock it till you get something you recognize.
Excuse me, is that data posted as soon as the provider signs their chart and submits it?
Yes.
Theory.
Doesn't have to wait.
Oh,
What's the mechanism to get that into a chart?
Right.
A question like an HL7?
that's what the hospital hub does, is it translates the code into HL7 and posts it in the chart.
Yeah, my understanding was our region didn't qualify for the trial period with Hospital Hub.
That would be correct.
So the future steps in integrating with Hospital Hub are,
Well, we're going to have to pay for a connection, and that is based upon call volume throughout the region, and we'll see what they come back with, and we'll do what we can to speak with Image Trend to see if we can get the price down. I've heard very high quotes, very low quotes. It is dependent on who you talk to, and apparently on what kind of relationship we have with Image Trend. We have a really good one, so I'm hoping it's a low price.
Is that a hospital cost or a region cost?
It would be a region cost. My fervent hope is that we could break that up among the receiving hospitals.
So not a simple way, like sending an email to using security now?
Well, that ability has been there for the last 10 years and no one has used it.
Yeah.
But it's not as simple as that. It doesn't integrate. And with a hospital hub, the receiving facility would be able to essentially post back results of patient care to that agency, which would allow the provider to take a look and see if they were good, bad, or indifferent on that call. And that would be for a specified time period, and then that portal would be shut down on that patient, which applies with all current cable laws.
Jeff, does that portal provide provider outcome feedback?
Yes, it does.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Protocol committee, anything else to add, Michael?
Yeah, just to follow up on the EMS summit that we had in February, we are moving that along to a tag, and that Bill is facilitating that, and there will also be a steering committee to work with that, just to keep all of that initial and good work up on the state of EMS in the region. And then one new topic that we want to open up for discussion today is regarding termination of resuscitation in the region. There have been some recent cases that were brought to our attention where there was some confusion in terminology, and some patients were quote unquote pronounced in the field, and it caused a number of concerns with regards to time of death and also crossing county lines with patients. And so actually I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kapish to take this further.
Yeah, it's almost not really a new topic in the sense that when you look at the regulations for New York State, anyone can actually pronounce somebody dead. You don't have to be a doctor or a paramedic or you can be the carpenter working nearby the body. There's
Dr.
no...
Kapish, keep your voice up, honey.
Sorry. There's no real, inclusion. However, historically, EMS has terminated resuscitative efforts when patients are deemed unresuscitable, and then turned the case over to the police, who then call the medical examiner, and they get a time of death from them, and or the medical examiner takes the case, etc. But usually, at least in our region, we haven't been pronouncing people dead. We've been terminating resuscitative efforts. And the responsibility of the person who pronounces the person dead is they have to then stay with the body until the medical examiner gets involved and or the body gets appropriately turned over. And we've steered clear of that as a system because we just cease resuscitative efforts, and then sort of the process gets handed over to the police for the most part. There were a couple cases where the paramedics pronounced, which isn't illegal, but then there were issues where the body, now that the patient was pronounced dead, got transported across county lines, and the medical examiner's offices are responsible for investigating wherever the body is when they get involved. And I don't remember the exact details, but the long and short, but because the paramedics had called the case and the body was then able to be transported to a different county, it became very confusing as to which medical examiner's office is responsible for overseeing the investigation, etc. And so we wanted to just reiterate to the providers, for the most part, like, why get involved? We can terminate resuscitative efforts and then hand the rest of the process over to the authorities, as we've historically been doing, as opposed to getting involved in making pronouncements. We can pronounce. I mean, if we wanted to, as a region, we could put out a document that says, you can pronounce people dead, and then you're responsible for the rest of the process. Or we can just do what we've been doing, which seems very easy. And so my take on this, and I think everybody we discussed this with, because it came up as a result of these couple of cases, is that we should issue an advisory saying we don't pronounce people dead pre-hospitally. We terminate efforts and then hand that over to the authority as a matter of policy. Open for discussion.
It came from the medical examiner of Dutchess County, who received the patient from Orange County. So it kind of Dr. Babish said, opened up a can of worms I never knew was, in existence, because I didn't think medics could determine and call it as a time of expiration, more so stopping resuscitative efforts, and why would you terminate? And that's what our protocols have always mirrored, the head's over there, the body's over there, we're going to say we're not going to resuscitate. So we are going to look at this, we're going to develop something, and then we'll put out an advisory to everybody. But I think why we wanted everybody to discuss it here was just to have your feelings on the pronouncement in the field, and we felt like we should leave it the way it is, that it's not a pronouncement. And I think the reason why it became confusing was the police were watching the medic terminate efforts and kept saying, what's the time of death, what's the time of death? And it's really not the time of death. What the medic was trying to say to them, this is the time of termination of resuscitation, which is different. So that's where I think the confusion came from.
And I think there are places in the state, like the city, the medics pronounce, or they get a call and then they put a time, but then they hang out.
But they probably have somebody there pretty quickly too, whereas here, I don't know how quickly that's going to.
And not always.
Westchester County does it, but that's because they have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week investigator at the ME's office. If I'm working in Westchester and I cease resuscitation, I call the ME's office, I give them a time, they give me a death certificate number, and that's what the police get, and then it's turned over to the police.
Yeah, because that's what we do at the hospital. We tell them the story and such. Anush?
It's the same thing. Who determines the time of death and who does the death certificate?
Yeah. Your favorite, electronic death certificates. Yes.
This is really a clarification on what the physicians are telling EMS when they get that phone call, because I can imagine if EMS is not feeling confident in having that conversation, they may bring more people to the hospital without confirmation over the phone. So it's really the words that we're using, may terminate resuscitative efforts at this time.
You can call them in the field, like you've had a case, I'm sure, of a hospice patient, and so we say, what's going on, da-da-da, we call it there, and then the funeral home's going to come pick up the patient, and, it's going to go on, and the PCP will fill out the death certificate, because they're aware of the case, they've had the patient in hospice, etc. So there's going to be case by case, but that's where, I would think our medics would not be the ones wanting to be on the front line to hold on to the whole case until everything's, said and done.
You brought up another point. One of the caveats of that is, and we were going to put in the advisory, is if a patient, the EMS can terminate efforts on the field if it seems like there's, no chance of resuscitation or there's obvious death. However, once they start transporting the patient, this is always becomes an issue, because they start transporting. If they stop halfway, like they're in the vehicle and they stop resuscitation, then they show up at the hospital. There have been several cases, at least that I'm aware of, I know at least 3, where the hospital has then said, no, take the body somewhere else. You stopped, and really to remind all the hospitals that once the patient's begun transfer, the obligation is to accept the patient and call it, it's a DOA. It's a very easy visit. But this has happened like in a couple different hospitals. It's happened in my hospital. So
the protocols on that are actually confusing, because they say if the patient's coming from the nursing home, patients to be returned back to the nursing home.
Right.
Yeah, it's not written well. I have to agree with you. We have to clarify it a little bit and make it a little more facilitated to follow, because I agree with you. I think it's written poorly. I brought it to Chris, so we'll look at that, because I agree. The way the collaborative protocol and the termination of efforts talks about a nursing home patient and who dies en route is to turn around and go back. We have to discuss and write it so it's really clear for everybody.
I've had a case like that where I show back up to the nursing home.
And they're like,
yeah, here's your body.
Yeah.
Things didn't work out.
Yeah, no, it becomes an issue. There's no question. So we have to get that clarified and make it so
The
it's.
other thing is on obvious deaths, when you walk in and you're confirming an obvious death, where you do a 3-lead on that patient, and the investigators are already there, and the investigators are hounding you for time of death. And basically, what I've done is I give them the strip. You can reflect back to that time. This is a termination, it's obvious death, there's nothing that I can do with it.
Yeah, and I mean, you mean the investigators like the police, not the medical examiner.
Because the ME would take the case, yeah.
Would just say, okay.
Yeah, I just think it needs to be really clearly spelled out for the medics so that they don't get, because they're going to be there, holding the bag, and police officers are going to be, so we've got to educate.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, right now the system works for 99.997. We've had, 5 cases where things are, inflating that number, where things have kind of been problematic. But for the most part, the system is as it is, and we want to make sure that remind everybody that this is our process, just to prevent these issues when they arise. The only thing I was saying about from the hospital perspective, we really shouldn't be fighting back with the, when the ambulance brings in a cardiac arrest, that, it's the easiest case of seeing a patient, pronouncing them, and, we take care of the body.
Exactly. Any other comments or concerns? Okay. CMAC report. Help me. Let's see. So we talked about New York City brought forward all their last changes to their protocols because they're really the only ones now outside of the collaborative. They brought forward changes to bring their protocols through. We approved the BLS protocols, as Mr. Beninati talked about. We talked about some of the educational things and CME changes that are coming forward.
Did the blood people come back?
No. I think they're afraid to come back.
Well,
I think they're afraid to come back.
The only reason I ask is our transfusion team at our hospital came and said, oh, there's been some changes that are coming down the pipeline regarding blood. But when they described it, and I don't remember all the details, it almost sounded like they made it more laborious as opposed to facilitating the process.
They did not come to the meeting. Yeah, no. Anything else anybody can think of? I'm sorry, I'm like a lunch bag today. Okay, open forum. Rich, you're up.
Couple things. We'll get this one done first. All right. Been asked to present the base team. RTAC made a request for it, and whenever we get the schedule for their next meeting, we'll be presenting to that. But the MACE team is the hospital mutual aid coordinating entity. Started back in '06. There was a big regional exercise, and when we started dealing with the state, we couldn't get bed information. So we started looking at putting this team together, and 6 of us worked on developing this, and it's been in effect since, I think, '06. The region talked about, what's the size of it, 2.2 million people. It entails 7 counties. We brought Westchester into it. And the square miles, the police, all that. These are different organizations that we potentially can deal with. The hospital beds, 7,000 of them. Nursing homes, this is becoming a big issue. Joint Commission, CMS has now mandated that they follow the same EM standards as hospitals do. So they're looking to us for some involvement and working with them. Right? And all the different agencies that we potentially can deal with. Right? Again, this is the region, the lower Hudson Valley. And this started, like I said, back in '06. We're 34 hospitals, all the original 6, and then we got all the other emergency managers involved in it, and came up with the operations guide and sent it out, and surprisingly, all the hospitals signed it. And what it is that they do make a commitment to supply personnel, pharmaceuticals, anything as available, not, hey, you will supply this bed, as it is available. And as you'll see, we have used it. We've shared beds. White Plains was hurting at one point for beds, put out the request for it. Another hospital was doing construction, and they had a wing with available beds. Yeah, come and pick them up, that type of thing. So that's how it was working, and it continues to work. Right? Like I said, it first started with this exercise. Catskill Regional, Vassar, and St. Anthony's, White Plains were evacuating, and when we went into the herd system to look for bed availability, it just wasn't there. So we wound up putting this program together, and there's always 2 of us on duty. And it's every month, 2 of us are on duty, and you get the call, it's a common number, I'll share that with you, and one person will go to that hospital and sit on their command, and the other one will go either they could come here and make the phone calls, or to their own office, start calling all the other EMs and say, hey, such and such hospital or White Plains has got this issue, what can we do to help them? And we start putting things in place. And we had it done within like a half hour. We could tell, hey, this hospital's got this hospital can take this many patients, what have you. So this is like out of the hot wash that came out of it, how do we go about it? So we came up with the signal coordinating entity, all right? So we came up with the goals and everything that go with it. We recruited members from the hospitals, and surprisingly all the hospitals signed on to it. All right. State emergency management offices, county EOCs may not be available, and that's what we found, especially at the state level, to get them involved. It's got to go through the county, and then getting the county involved, that type of stuff. County health departments, we're finding that they don't have a real good grasp on emergency management. With the latest measles, we help them. Rockland County didn't have enough IG, so they put out a request through the Rockland County Health Department that does sit on the MACE team, requesting it within 15 minutes. Phelps said, hey, we can help you, and got it to them. And then the more recent ones, Orange County has been looking for IG, and we were able to help them. So we come up with the standing operating guide, and it's, anybody's welcome to it. It's got the introduction, the membership, how do you activate communication. We come up with a job action sheet. If you're familiar with the hospital as a command system, it's got job action sheets. We developed one along those lines for the MACE team representative, what he's supposed to do. All right, different forms, resource management, how do we integrate with other facilities, and we do trainings and exercises for our own people, that, dealing with public relations. We leave that up to whoever the incident commander is. They should have their PIO. We will work with them. And how do we transfer operations and reports that we generate. It's all volunteer. In my case, I'm the co-chair of it, volunteer. My boss has to sign off that he agrees to do that. And every other member of the team does have that. Right? You have to have 100, 200, 700, 800 to be part of the team and be employed by a facility that does sign off on that. We would like you to have 300 and 400 also. All right? So this is the form that the boss would sign off on, that you can join the team, that you are actively participating in it. As I mentioned, the job action sheet that we developed. So if you follow that, we recommend that the hospitals put it into their emergency management plan, so when they get to that point where they need them, they know who to call, how to go about it. And there's your cheat sheet, the standing number. At midnight on the 1st of the month, the number rolls over to whoever who's on duty, and they get the phone call. All right. So only a signatory of the agreement can activate it. I said one rep goes to the hospital, the other one goes to the the base team. If it's multiple hospitals involved, it's a regional-wide incident, then we'll bring in more of the base team and split up the requirements or the resources. Right, so that's the contact number. Normet, when it used to be here in...
I'm sorry, what'd you say,
Normet.
Normet, N-O-R-M-E-T, all right? They now consolidated with Suburban out of Long Island, but they still keep part of the Normet, all right? But they maintain this phone, and I said that's how we activate it. This is one of the forms that we use. You know, we can go down the list, we can find out what beds you got available, med-surg, burns, others, and then when we start sending them, like we work with Frank with the Port Authority and the air show. We're there in the morning. We call all the hospitals and what's your status, what's going on, and then in the afternoon, and then if something happens, we can tell the squad that, hey, this hospital can take this type of patient, all right? It takes the burden off of the county OEM. You know, we know who to talk to. Generally, you know, we talk right to the ERs or to the nursing supervisors to find out what's your bed availability, and how we can say, you know, take the patients to these facilities. Now, here we are at the NDMS exercise. You know, got all the information. This is when they flew in a lot of patients, and then we had all kinds of ambulances there, and designating where these patients should go. So we do the different training exercises. Definitely the hospitals have to participate in 2 a year. You know, we just did a big one for the region the beginning of May. 2 hospitals evacuated, Nyack and Good Sam, and you know, again, calling around, finding out what patients could go where, and we could start moving them. Some of the nursing homes got involved with shipping patients also. And so, different training exercises we've been into. You know, big program with West Point. One of the co-founders of Normet was the emergency manager there, so whenever they have exercises, we're over there all the time working with those folks, and they just had a real big one in April. So this is our different folks, different training programs. We've been at Indian Point working with their emergency management programs. This is the NDMS exercise where they flew in this plane and simulated patients, and we would have to assign them to different appropriate facilities. And the check-ins and what have you. The 3 people in the middle, one is the co-chair, myself, and the other gentleman is from West Point, and he was one of the driving forces of developing this program. Real world exercises, fire at Sound Shore, they had a boiler let go, so we got involved with that, getting them extra supplies, moving patients around. Exercise at St. Luke's. Again, Mass Cal at Keller's. This one, the fire at New Windsor. I happened to be in that area when the page went out, so I went right to St. Luke's. I was in their command center, and we had everything set up to go. No patients showed up. They didn't start showing up until later that evening. They all had some issues about, saying yes, I'm hurt type of things, but when they started having respiratory problems, that's when St. Luke's started seeing a lot of different patients. But initially, we were set up. We did make initial calls out to some of the local hospitals, and this is what's going on, and if something did happen. But really, it was a nice exercise to get together, but we really didn't get to do much. All right, so what have we done? All right, in 15, an exercise at the Port Authority, exercise at Westchester County Airport, and Westchester County Airport has mandated that the MACE team be an active part of any of their exercises. There is some issues with Westchester County OEM. they've put into their program that the MACE team will be an active part of it. And it turned out when they had their big exercise, not the most recent one, but the one before, when the county OEM started going to the state for their bed numbers, they're still waiting for it. Where the MACE team had all the bed numbers within a half hour. They said, okay, here's where your patient can go. The air show, that's an actual. Mass Cal, an actual, like I mentioned, White Plains needed hospital beds, so got involved with that, getting them extra beds. Again, the air show in 17, the chemical plant in 17. The surge exercise that the state did, again, Mass Cal, Westchester Airport, the Port Authority exercise with New Windsor EMS. The air show, and we're scheduled to do the air show again this year. Rockland County, I mentioned how they needed IG for their measles, and within 15 minutes we answered that request. And Orange County, and the most recent one was the 24th of May, where they needed it again. The Westchester County Airport, I mentioned, where we got involved in that. The biggest issue that we're finding, and Dr. Larson can talk to this, is burn beds. When we were looking at setting this thing up, there's only 10 burn beds in this region. How do we disperse burn patients? One of the things we're looking at is putting together a call-down list for all the different burn beds that are available. One of the additions that we found that we need to add to this program. All right, we do generate a report. It goes to all the hospitals, it goes to Suburban Normet, and they pass it on to those folks. All right, and we've been asked to present this to Joint Commission meetings. Joint Commission puts out a pamphlet or a book on emergency management. We work on the cover of that particular document about it, and it's recognized as a way to do things in developing coalitions. And that's the big thing right now in all of healthcare, developing coalitions, working together. So where we are, we want to get out to all the hospitals. We do have emergency managers from different hospitals, but when we call, a lot of people go, huh, what's the MACE team? We would like to get on the emergency manager's calendar, the CEO's calendar, and present, hey, this is the MACE team, this is what we can do for you. All right. Westchester Airport, like I mentioned, we're involved with that. Orange County, we're part of their plan now. If they see more than 25 patients, we get the call to come in and assist. Long-term care, that's where we're headed with this right now. Getting a lot of requests from those folks to come in and work with them. And then definitely EMS. I'm the lonely EMS rep at all these meetings, and I'm always fighting for it. John, you're there, you're part of it. And, EMS, just like we're talking here, we're a stepchild. How do we get EMS involved in this stuff where we belong? So, questions, comments?
I have a couple comments. One, this MACE thing, I think, is absolutely the most cohesive thing that we have in the Hudson Valley that is an ongoing. The folks, and these are a lot of the emergency medicine managers, emergency preparedness managers at the various hospitals have been very dedicated about it. They've taken this very seriously. They put themselves on call. It's all volunteer, but they have been there every time something has gone down where someone knew to reach out to MACE. So, I'm just a really strong supporter of it because of all the entities that I've seen over the years to try to come up with some kind of cohesive system to respond to a wide area disaster or something affecting a hospital, these folks have done it. And the other thing is that, you know, as we are all under some empire now of various, whether we're with, you know, Montefiore or whatever, Westchester Medical Center, whatever it is, they have brought across the board that kind of cooperation, which I think is also pretty good, so that people haven't broken down into just the silos of their particular, you know, hospital organization. One thing I would put out a pitch here for is, in addition to the two folks who are always on, we've tried to have a physician advisor on board for them to consult with. And I'm on for a lot of that, but it would be great if we had a lot more docs who would be willing to, and like I said, I've probably been called once this whole time. It's not like you're going to get a lot of calls, but sometimes they need some expertise on a particular thing. So, and this is the perfect body of folks to do it, right? So I'm urging all the docs who are here to think about signing up to take a month of MACE call.
You can put me on, Rich. Put me in, Rich.
So, you know, so anyway, whatever. You know, a month that you're going to be here, and you know you're going to be here, and you're not off on vacation or something like that, put yourself in, and, you know, just remember that you may be getting a call from this entity named MACE, and, you know, just be really familiar with it. So, that's one thing. And like I said, for me, in terms of, this is sort of a response system for the National Disaster Medical System, okay? I would bet that the vast majority of all your hospitals are NDMS hospitals. In other words, those hospitals, in case of a national crisis, are supposed to accept a certain number of patients that would be brought in. And so, right out there on those runways is probably the most common way that, for instance, this is what happened in Hurricane Katrina, that all of a sudden we had 3,000 to 4,000 patients that we were flying out of the New Orleans International Airport that went all over the country, and all of a sudden they were landing at airbase, you know, airports all over the country, and they had to be distributed out to hospitals and so on. This is the agency that's going to put that together and make it a coordinated effort. And this is why, you know, you can see some of those practice exercises. So from a national point of view, and from the fact that your hospitals are, you know, I would bet that the vast majority of the hospitals here in the Hudson Valley are under the NDMS contract. And so they would be the receiving agency. So it's you know, really incumbent on us to play an active role and support this entity. It is, like I said, what I have seen, the most organized, ongoing effort to bring the forces together and have some kind of a emergency response on an area-wide basis. So as physicians, please sign up to be an advisor for at least a month. Get to know about MACE. Can we get this protocol? Can we get this PowerPoint out? You know, that would be good, because this is your sort of basic knowledge of what it is. And,
We can attach it to the minutes today and make sure it goes out to everybody, and then we can distribute. As long as you're, as long as you're okay with that, Rich.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's a lot of stuff that's blocked out in there, a lot of different pictures of them. But yeah, the NDMS, it showed the big plane. Mike, I'd have to go back to, remember Desert Storm, when we were putting the ambulances on call for that. And that would be the ideal thing for the MACE team. They would be there and say, okay, here's who's got beds available, things like that. The hardest set of beds to fill are Sundays.
Yeah, that's every day of the week.
Nobody wants, this is very limited. Yeah, in fact, a couple of years ago, we were one of the evacuating hospitals for the surge exercise, and our sites wound up sending them to some hospital down in the Bronx, and nobody wanted to take them. So it's a good way to get a handle on what's available and distributing the patients appropriately.
Excellent. Thank you, Rich. So, everybody reach out to Rich if you're interested, and I really appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Yep.
And while I got the floor, I got some other things.
Yeah, go.
All right. We had the elections of offices, and I got elected as president again. Dave is my new vice president. Denise is our treasurer, and Nick Triano is staying on as secretary. Some of the things that we want to look at is our committees need to get more active. If you look at the protocol committee, doing a great job. The training committee, the transportation committee, that poor guy was recruited, says, oh, nothing happens. Well, yeah, it's the busiest year we've had with transfers. All right, the state EMS, the REMAC, are all good things. But our public information committee isn't doing a thing. We need to come up with some type of newsletter. We need to get information out to everybody. What's happening with the protocols? How do we get it out there?
Probably since Mr. Work, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he used to be the one to, publicize all of our stuff in both directions, from a political perspective and,
Yeah.
just...
And nobody has come forward to take that position. Our policy and procedure, the gentleman passed away. We need a new person to take that over. EPCR, we're looking at that, community paramedicine awards. Once a year, we get all active in awards. We need to do a better job of recognizing people, not 1 week out of the year. It's gotta be 52 weeks of the year. All right? So, if you are a member of the council, you're supposed to be on the committee, and that's one of the things we're going to be looking at to try to get everybody involved in that. All right? County EMS councils leave a lot to be desired. Some of them are very active, others don't do a thing. I'm glad to see that the protocol committee is reaching out to the coordinators. Hopefully, they're going to get involved, because the protocol rollout is going to be a big problem. We need to get it out to everybody. Right? One of the things we're looking at is, when we get these committees more active, is doing a conference call monthly, not waiting every quarter to, hey, what are you doing? Let's keep their feet to the fire, get things moving. Right?
And if you did that by phone, it might be easier to facilitate, and people could just call in and you'd have...
Oh, yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Coming here, we're looking at conference calls, WebExes, something like that.
Yeah, because it used to be hard for people to,
Yeah.
jump out of their other jobs, so...
Yeah. And one of the thoughts is restructuring the council. Now, we need to bring in non-EMS, non-medical. We need input from civilians about the medical community, EMS, what they do. We've asked at the last meeting that the councils go back and look at their membership and possibly bring in non-EMS folks, at least one from each council, so we can have those folks on board. The bylaws committee is accepted to revisit the bylaws and make some changes along those areas. All right? The office is looking at, as Mike said earlier, the constant contact email list. We're looking at Grey Goose, which is a redoing our portal. We have some issues with portal. Grey Goose. Okay?
Not the vodka.
Yeah, not
Well,
the
you
vodka.
can use some of that too.
And this here is, I'm glad that what Mike brought up, the issue with BLS. Now, the BLS Protocol Committee, a lot of provider issues. We address ALS issues here. We do very little with addressing BLS issues. The BLS folks look at us as the police, not as a resource. When they hear from the region, it's usually, hey, you guys did something you shouldn't have done. All right? We need to change that image. We need to, hey guys, come on board. We need to work with you. All right? How do we stop this? I'm not moving the patient till ALS shows up. Right? BLS is the first level of care, and if ALS is not available, The next ALS is the hospital, not sitting there waiting for an ALS unit to come out of another county and sit there 45 minutes to an hour, even an hour and a half. So how do we do that? You know, staffing issues, you know, leadership training. We need to put a program together for the BLS folks. You know, how do you effectively lead an agency? Standard of care, that's one of the things that the REMAC. How many of our BLS agencies are following albuterol, all right, EpiPen, Narcan, glucometry? They're not using it, and they're supposed to be. We talked about the hospital hub, and hopefully we'll see some of that coming in. Those are things that we see, and we had an executive committee meeting, that's where a lot of this stuff came from, all right? These are things that we see, and the big thing is we have to address our BLS. Our BLS folks need attention.
No question there.
Okay?
Thanks, Rich. And congratulations. I didn't know you were re-elected president. That's excellent. Okay, that brings us to the end of new business, open forum.
Okay. This is going to open forum.
Okay.
Well, one of the things, just going back to stroke, is, you know, what pre-hospital evaluation tool are we going to use? Because everyone's throwing, you know, there's LAMS, there's Cincinnati Stroke Scale, there's FAST ED. So I don't know. I think one of the things as we move towards some type of destination system, we probably want to have a good pre-hospital stroke scale. So I just like to throw that out there.
I thought that was why we
thoughts.
That's why we're waiting on
tabled
the
it,
state. Yeah.
because they were going to come out with an edict
gonna-
as to
we're
what
gonna
the
wait.
official tool was.
Yeah, because then we could
sometime
be
in
all,
next year.
we could all be the same, hopefully. So we're waiting to see which one they pick. I still think it's going to be Cincinnati, but we're hoping that something's going to come forward, maybe more towards FAST and all those things. So we're not sure. So we're waiting for them to bring it together, and then we'll all disseminate it on the same page and not have to be redundant.
Question is, should we have like a little timeline as to how long we're going to wait? You know, 'cause, I mean, they said,
Yeah.
my understanding is that it was supposed to be within the year, something was going to come out. And, you know, if we're here next year discussing which tool, maybe we should then act.
Right, Mike, I think it's going to be soon, right?
You know, most of the information we got from Bill from the state, I mean, it
It's-
appears to be
yeah.
moving very fast.
Yeah, it seems like
The
it.
manual is out,
Yeah.
and so I think that you're going to see this process move along
Yeah,
very
I think so. I mean, there's no guarantees in life, but it seems like this one, they are, it's a hot button item, and they're on edge to get it out.
We have a call every month, and it's Wednesday of this week.
So ask them for the update.
Yeah, with Ryan Greenberg, the director of Bureau of EMS up in Albany. So it's all of the program agencies are contacted and on the call, and that's where a lot of this information comes from. So so we'll see what we can get out of them this time.
It just would seem like if we made a whole big hoopla and decided on race, for instance, and then they said fast ED, and then we have to kind of revisit
Yeah.
and reinvent ourselves 6 months after we do it.
It'd be a pain in the neck.
Of course.
I mean, just looking at the studies and the predictive value of each one of these tools seems to be pretty damn close. I mean, in terms of, so it's like, just tell me. Just tell me what you're going to use so we can all
So we
train
can
to
Yeah.
it.
look to it, yeah.
You know?
Pretty much what came out of the protocol committee was fast ED, right?
because that's what Remote had
Remote.
used.
Yeah,
But,
and-
and that was the only reason, because it was an easy app to use.
And there's an
Yeah,
app already,
yeah,
it's like
it's
almost
our-
like pre-made.
Yeah, it's like, why reinvent the wheel? The only problem was we wanted to make sure that's what the state's going to come forward with first.
I did make a suggestion to Dr. Papish that through the triage app, we mimic something to have triage be able to do that processing.
I think they, like I said, we were saying, they'll gladly insert whatever tool we end up picking, because they have a vested interest in it. Make it useful.
One of the issues with the Fast ED is that it's not an option when you're doing your EPCR, so you have to put it into the other column, and it's calculated, it's not counted the same way. But I think they're going to modify that, if that's what they're going with.
Anything else? Okay, I'll ask for a motion for adjournment. I got the words out this time. Thank you, and a second. Thank you, guys. I appreciate everybody coming, and have a great week.